Hello, Wisconsin FFA state contestants. This is your European hand tie tutorial. If you could follow this along with your study guide, you will have success. So you're going to take your non-dominant hand and you're going to put this at 12 o'clock, your first stem, and use this as your support. You're going to bring in a second stem, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Cross it over to 10 o'clock. So if you're looking at a clock, there's 12, 10, and you're going to take your dominant hand and you're going to scoop it up, pull, and flip. And so basically all that's happening is that other stem is now at 2 o'clock versus 10. It does not make sense for the first few rounds. So we're going to put some filler in. So open up that finger, 10 o'clock, scoop it up, flip it over to 2 o'clock. Do not worry about here. Your middle one is going to constantly fall down every single time you open up that finger. So keep going. It does not matter how you place it in unless you're doing grouping. So 10, flip over to 2. Or we can say cross to the left, scoop, spin to the right. And you just want to keep doing this to keep everything kind of mixed up. So cross to the left, scoop, spin to the right. As it gets bigger, you're going to notice that I used this fat pad of my hand to hold it inside. Again, don't worry about that. We're going to fix it at the very end. So I'm just going to keep adding my product, and I'm going to try to go a little fast so that you get a good idea. Leather leaf, when you guys are given that, because it is on the cheaper side, it's really good to add some fluff inside of the middle of your hand tie to kind of bulk it up and make it look a little bit bigger than it actually is. So don't be afraid to use that and add some more filler to bulk out your actual design. If you're not comfortable doing clockwise, please feel free, once you know the technique, and you can do it counterclockwise. Those of you that know me, you know that I teach it one way. So this is the way I teach, going clockwise. But when I do it by myself, doing bridal bouquets or hand ties inside of my studio, I actually do it the opposite way. Don't ask me why that is, but that's what happens here. So I'm going to add some bigger filler flowers into here, and just to kind of get some volume, depth, texture, all those words that are on your rubrics. And we're going to get some mass flowers like these Mondial roses. So don't be afraid. Put those in. If you have something softer that has maybe a more bendable stem, you can actually lay that in here. So I'm going to lay that in and then see where the actual stems are flowing. And you can see that cross pattern with the spiral. And I can just lay that right in there. And then that way it has support. And I'm still going to flip it. I'm going to do that with a couple of these. Flip it around. Slide that in. And flip. Add some filler on the back here. So once you have this spiral in place, then you can start adding things in one by one to get some bulk. Just make sure, like here, you don't have these crossing stems. So when I added that in, that crossed over. So I probably switched from my old technique versus new. And so I like to add in iris when they're really tight. That way the customer gets a good surprise in the morning when they unfurl. And sometimes they're kind of cool if you add them in as a group. So you can put 1, 2, and 3, and then give it a spin. Get this side, we'll add some more tulips. And those are also now in a group. So we'll add the third one over here. So we're kind of getting all of our purple spread out, which is great. We're going to add some more pink for the roses. I've got 2 stock only. So we're going to push that in here. Notice how I have 0 filler on this side. So we're going to add that next. Over here, we'll add a couple pieces. And it's getting a little bit fatter, harder to hold for me. One more tulip here. And we add the soft stems in the middle, try to put them in the middle so that when we bind it, nothing gets pulled or yanked on and then pulled through also. If there are softer stems, we usually want to keep those on in the middle versus the outside. And I'm just going to add a little bit more filler here too, which is the chrysanthemums. This adds a really good amount of colors. So we're not in monochromatic. Monochromatic would mean I wouldn't have the roses in there because they're pink versus the purple. When you have monochromatic, if the rules allow, you can always have the green inside there, unless they say, you know, 100% monochromatic, meaning no green flowers whatsoever. You can only have foliages, but that has to be clarified with the person putting on the design contest, and that's usually not going to happen with FFA. It'll happen in more like state groups and more vigorous competitions. So here we go. This is a really good bouquet. My arm's getting heavy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze this, put my hand down a little bit further because I'm getting really, really, really tight. I'm going to give it a shake so don't get dizzy on me or nauseous. And then I have these beautiful Italian ranunculus, and those are I'm gonna just slide those in the middle to match up with those roses. They're almost exact same color. It's crazy how like they are. And so one, I'm gonna slide this one to match my stems here. You can see that. Just gonna slide that right in there because they're nice heavy stems, and then it's popped up right there. And then I'm gonna add the third one. Maybe here. So keep them a little close to each other. You want to separate them just a tiny bit so they don't look like googly eyes. And then I'm gonna push this up. Keep that tulip up. It's getting a little dry. And then we're gonna do something called collaring, which is adding the foliage onto the sides. And that kind of just fills it out. Make sure it's a whole bouquet. For when you send it off to your customers, that green basically just shows on the bottom of their vase. So you're gonna put those on there, whatever foliage that you were given. And then what we do, I call it the fluff and fold. So anything that fell to the middle, you're gonna try to either get your hand in there loose enough that you don't break it and pull it up, or you can find the actual stem at the bottom if you know which one's which that's the stock, so we can kind of give that a little tug and pull. Actually, surprisingly, a lot of my stuff stayed where it was supposed to, mostly because of the chrysanthemums. Those are good lock. They lock everything in place because of those bracts, so it's kind of nice. So that is a hand-tied bouquet. You can see the really, really nice spiral at the bottom. We are going to give it a cut, and then I am going to tie it off with something called a bind. But we're going to cheat and use some medical tape. So we're going to find our lowest stem, which right here, that one needs water. So I'm going to cut across as straight as possible. And I like to use the Ohana scissors because it's basically like using 2 knives. And you guys had that in your first packet for regionals and a couple packets before that last year also. So you want to get that as flat as possible, because if that customer does put it in a vase, it's short enough that it will go inside the vase and they won't have to cut it again, because you know that they're going to cut it with just a scissors. So this is the medical tape. This is your bind point where it kind of comes in like a corset. You're going to start there. It's hard to do the first couple of times if you're new at this and your hand is cramping up. So I put my thumb down on here and then wrap it around. Use your best you can to do this. So make sure you practice this a couple times, or you will be doing this in a team. So have one person hold like here and here, and you go around with the tape so that it's nice and neat, because this is your one and only mechanic. So it has to be covered because it's kind of ugly. So you're going to hold that tape out, give it a clip, a nice fresh clip, and then put it over, and then you are going to conceal this because that is your mechanic. All right, so let's see what this looks like. You give it a little bit of air, and then you're gonna wrap that with craft paper and a little bit of tissue paper, and then put a really nice bow and sticker on it for your exam for state. So thank you. We will do another one for wrapped and include that on the YouTube channel. Thank you guys.